Good morning. I hope you're doing well. Here is my Q1 flip through. This is January. This is one of my very old linoleum carvings. This is the Three of Swords one for the tarot, and it means change and separation and loss and grief. And I chose it because I liked the artwork, and I'm not really superstitious about that sort of thing. In retrospect, maybe I should have been a little bit superstitious. So the left-hand side is my Calendex, and this is my to-do list for the month. It's pretty aspirational. I've been setting up my planners like this for years and years and years, and it works really well for me. This is the weeklies. I write a little calendar at the top of the page, and the daily lists take up the rest of it. There's a lot of sketches because I was trying to sketch more daily at this point. The washi dots are my daily word count. I'm a writer, and that's how many words I wrote that day. And it's not very many words because I'm a very slow writer. More sketches. I was trying to do abstract of a tree, and this is notes from the first book that I read this year. It was called Do the Work, and it was kind of like reading a motivational PowerPoint. And usually that's not at all my thing, but I really connected with it for some reason. Probably because the author admitted that you need to have a certain amount of blind, stupid stubbornness to be an artist, because there's just so much failure involved. And not even failure necessarily, it's just there's so much beyond your control. And I find that to be very true for me personally, and I feel like people don't talk about it very much because it sounds so depressing. How do you become a good artist? Well, you just ignore how awful you are for a long time and keep going. Great. This is my first tarot spread of the year, and I apologize if you can hear planes in the background. That's really low. Jeez. This is my first tarot spread of the year. I do a reading for myself every 2 weeks because that seems about the right amount of time, and I'm actually writing a book on tarot, so a nonfiction book on how to read tarot. So I'm trying to develop different techniques for reading the cards and reading the spreads and applying them to my own reading so I can make sure that it works. This is some sketches that I made for linoleum prints that I had planned to carve. One of them worked out okay, the other one not so much. And again, most of my art is a failure. That's just how it is. Or maybe I should call it practice. Weeklies, dailies, writing, sketches. This is a monster from Stephen King's Dark Tower series, which I was rereading at the beginning of the year. And it's like this evil lobster creature that plays a big role in the plot, and it's really scary, and yeah. These are notes for a book that I was going to write that I am not writing anymore. I read about half of it. More weeklies. These are two versions of a little linoleum carving. Pardon my cat. A little linoleum carving that I did. I was very, very stressed out at that point, and I did two versions of feeling frayed, like a power plug that's just fraying at the ends and sparking all over the place. And then I ended up liking the first version better, and I didn't really like either one of them, so yeah. More sketches for linoleum print ideas. I really liked this one. I did a couple versions of it, as you see, and I was just trying to make it work in two colors, in black and white, and it just wasn't working. I like it with the gold on it. I was briefly obsessed with gold, and I liked how the water was coming out of the cup. I was trying to make it... Okay, so Ace of Cups means like the birth of an idea or a new relationship or something good and healthy and very emotional. gets your cup overflowing with joy. And I was envisioning the cup overflowing with something a little more viscous and maybe more personal, like honey or wine or things like that. More tarot readings. More notes. Oh, that's notes for the tarot book. Another weekly. This is the week that I actually got sick with COVID. I didn't know it. I didn't know that I had it at this point, but looking back, I can see that I was already sick. I didn't feel well physically. I was having brain fog issues, and unfortunately, those are also symptoms of my chronic illness that I have. And it can be really difficult to figure out which one it is for me. My very simple February setup. Another linoleum print that I did. Trackers for art and writing. This is one of my favorite pages that I have in here, actually, and I know it looks like a complete mess, and it is a mess. I was journaling underneath. You can still see it. I was journaling through some feelings of anger and grief about my chronic illness. I've been told inaccurate information by some health professionals, and I talked about it on the page, and I didn't want to cover that up because I'm not ashamed of it, and I didn't want to act like there was anything wrong with it. So, but I didn't want to read it all the time either. I wanted to have it accessible but not obvious. So I printed this and these stamps on vellum. This vellum overlay. These are stamps that I carved, and so are these. And I printed this quote. It's a quote from the television series Interview with the Vampire, and I just thought it was it's a really nice, fitting thing. More weeklies. This is where I started having really clear symptoms of COVID, and I tested myself, and it showed up immediately. It was very obvious. It was not a good week. I was very angry about it, actually. And it was partly my fault, because the person who gave it to me was a family member, and they had a cough and a runny nose and all these other things. And they decided to come visit me anyway. And when I saw that they were clearly sick, I asked them about it, and they said it wasn't COVID. And I assumed that they had tested to make sure it wasn't COVID. And they hadn't. They just thought, well, I'm vaccinated, so it's clearly not COVID. And it was. So that was my fault for assuming that. And this is me pretending that I don't have COVID and I'm completely not sick, even though I was laying on the couch blowing my nose every 2 minutes. And, oh, geez, a complete week of nothingness. There's so much fatigue with COVID, and I've been vaccinated. I had the vaccine, and I have had 3 boosters, I want to say, by this point, and it still hit me like a load of bricks, man. It was weeks and weeks of just exhaustion and sickness, and oof. So I was laying on the couch and plotting stories that I will never write. And this was week 3, in which case I was 2.5, I guess, 3, and I was able to sit up at this point. Sit up, look at the pigeons. Love pigeons. More tarot readings. More really, really messy sketches. I will never understand the moon card. Yeah. So, and this is another spread about me not understanding the moon card with my weeklies. This gold stuff is embossing powder, so it's got a texture to it. And yeah, so the moon card is one that I got in my tarot reading, and I've never understood that card. So I spent like a week and a half just really thinking seriously about it and researching it and trying to figure it out. And I think I get it now. I think it means being controlled by the darker parts of yourself, how all of us are to an extent, how we're controlled by our hidden ideas and our hidden beliefs and things that we don't really want to think about consciously. And it's not hidden and dark as in evil, it's hidden and dark as in subconscious. So when this card comes up, I know that I need to pay attention to the unacknowledged reasons behind my actions, because I'm hiding something from myself that I'm not addressing. So that's good to know. Uncomfortable, but good. And this is March, and I was, again, very, very optimistic about my goals. I was like, yeah, I'm coming out of COVID. I've done all this work to realign my goals with my values. I'm feeling really good and capable, and I got this, man. Which just goes to show. And this is more tracking for stories. I submit a lot of things. Well, I submit my stories to literary magazines, and they all have different guidelines for what they need and what they want, and when submissions are open and when they close, and how long they have to be, and what sort of format it has to be in. Yeah, so I track it. Another tarot reading. This one has the death card in it, which doesn't literally mean death in most cases. It usually means, major changes, and I very naively and optimistically assumed that that was about me realigning myself with my goals. Gosh, I'm so optimistic. Another weeklies. This was a new system that I was trying out, and it's been working really well so far. I think this is called a vertical weekly. This might be a horizontal weekly. I cannot keep those two things separate in my mind. But it's a week on one page and my weekly to-do list here. And this has like my scheduled things, and every day I write down the list for myself. And the symbols, I carved these myself. They're my stamps that I carved, and they are symbols to show my focus for the day. Like Saturday is for, this week for Saturday was for social things. Friday was for physical health, so Thursday was for writing. Wednesday was visual art. Obviously, there are certain things that I do every day. Like I talk to my partner every day, I talk to my friends pretty much every day. I clean the dishes every day. But I find that having one particular day to concentrate on bigger tasks, like Tuesday was cleaning the house, so it was like, doing the laundry and reorganizing the pantry or whatever. I find that having one day to focus on those bigger tasks really helps me from getting overwhelmed and kind of anxious about thinking that I'm not going to get everything done. I mean, I don't get everything done. Obviously, nobody ever gets everything done, but I feel like focusing on it really helps me do that and feel better about it. And so does this, which I boxed up so it looks more obvious. It's just a list of good things that happened that day, or that week rather. Because, like I said, it's really easy to focus on things that are like, look at my list of tasks and see, oh gosh, I didn't get half of these things done, or I feel so unaccomplished. But a lot of good things happened too. Like this week I got new running shoes. Fantastic. My old ones were so old. And I had a good run. I improved something in my writing. I got a new art, changed my art style a little bit. Lots of good things. And then the death card hit. It was a fucker of a week. So basically I live in an apartment, and there was a fire in one of the apartments, not mine, and everyone's safe, everyone's fine, no one died, no one lost their pets or anything, but it was still obviously very traumatic and difficult for all of us, and very upsetting, and for me personally, and this is the second time that I've actually been displaced by fire in an apartment building, which has also been really difficult. All the emotions come up again, so now I have to find a new place to live. Yes, so I spent a lot of the week listening to YouTube videos, mostly James Lee Burke Creative. He's a visual artist and he's a dancer, and his videos have really been resonating a lot with me lately. I'm not sure why specifically, but anyway, it was happening, so I took some notes about things that spoke to me particularly, and what he was saying. Um, and this is really out of order. Wow. This is, March 6th, and this is the 1st. So this is notes from a book that I read called Unfuck Your Body. It's about the brain-body connection, and I found it really helpful because that's one of the things that I've been struggling with a lot lately. And more art. I was thinking about, envy and how we envy other people's lives or their experiences, and it's really easy to forget your own skills and your own gifts and your own dreams when you look at somebody else's and you think, oh God, they're so capable and they're so together and they have everything that they need. But that's, and in some cases, people are better than you, but a lot of it is just not remembering to focus on yourself and your own abilities. And this is more YouTubers. Again, most of this is James Lee Burke. He said this thing in particular. He said, I want to do things that I don't have the skills to do, so I need to acquire those skills. And I know that sounds very obvious and very basic, like, of course, you need to get skills before you can actually have those skills. But again, it just connected with me. I was thinking about, like I said, I was thinking about envy and how, for me at least, I can get really tied up in being jealous of somebody else's skill set, of what they are able to do, and that can really bring me down, and I feel like a failure because I'm not where I want to be. And the reality is that, yes, I'm not where I want to be, that's true, but it's not a failure in me because I'm at the beginning of my skill, my journey. It's not a moral statement on who I am as a person or my capabilities as an artist. It's just a statement about my skills. I want to improve, I need to improve, and that's all there is to it. It's just straightforward. All I can do is get better, learn, practice, get my ego out of the way, and actually, it's not about me. It's just what needs to be done. And that's really easy to say and very hard to do. And this is another crappy week. I was very upset about the fire. I was upset about moving again because this is this is the third time that I've moved in the past 3 years. So since the beginning of the pandemic, this is the third time I've moved during the pandemic. And it is such a lot of work to do it. It's such a lot of work to reorganize your life, and I'm pretty okay with moving generally, but it's just rough. And it's hard. For me personally, I really love this apartment. It's exactly what I needed in a lot of ways at the right time. Like, it's been so good for my health. It has access to a gym, so I can just go and I don't have to worry about it all the time. It has access to a place I can write, so I can just do that and not have to worry about it all the time. I used to have a home gym set up and a place for me to write at home, and it was just not working for me. There's so many distractions, mostly my cat. Not all of them are the cat, but yeah, it's really good for me to get out of the house and do those things, and I'm able to do that in this apartment, and I'm not going to be able to do it in my next one, and it's, yeah. So it's been like this place of safety for me in a lot of ways, and now I kind of have to just give that up and find a new way to keep working on myself without the comfort of all that. So I was whining about it. And this is a little bit of whining and a lot of just, oh my God, moving, there's so much to do, oh God. And yes, so here is the page with some talk about food and chronic illness and mental health and disability. And I'm going to stay on this page so you can mute or skip ahead, and then when I move ahead, you will know that it's done. So I was recently diagnosed with something called gastroparesis, which means that my stomach doesn't work efficiently. In my case, it showed up with a bunch of symptoms that nobody, including me, actually thought were connected to my stomach. Like, there's a lot of physical pain, and there's blood sugar issues, and there's a rapid heartbeat, and alopecia, which basically means I'm going bald. And these things have been going on for a really long time, but because I live in America and I was working at a low-paying job, I didn't have any money to go to the doctor because our healthcare is very, very expensive here. And around 10 years ago, I got a new job and I had some little bit of disposable income. And I went to the doctor and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm finally going to get this sorted out. I'm finally going to get this horrible thing treated. And I went to the doctor and explained to them what had been going on. And they said, you know, I think you have an eating disorder. I think that you're drug seeking, and I think that you're depressed and you're anxious, and I think that you need a psychiatrist. So I went to another doctor and I tested out more things, and they said, yeah, you know, there's no reason that this should be happening. Have you considered that you need a psychiatrist? Have you considered that you're drug seeking? Have you considered that you're making all of this up for attention? So I went to another doctor and this went on for over 10 years. Every couple months I would go to a new specialist, like a rheumatologist or a cardiologist, because I had a lot of pain. As I said, I was having pain and swelling in my joints, and my heartbeat was very, very high. And I had every couple months I'd go to a new specialist, and I'd have more very expensive tests, which would wipe out my savings. And every time the doctor would look at me and say, well, there's clearly something wrong, but we can't find any source of it. So probably you're making it up. And it was over a decade of this, like I said, and it left me, obviously, it was very frustrating and upsetting, and I know that I have psychological issues. I mean, I came into it knowing that I have chronic PTSD and I have depression and anxiety and some other things, and those are very serious problems, but they're not physical problems. With the caveat that, of course, yes, they do have a role in my physical body, but at the source of them, those are mental problems. And I also have physical issues. And like I said, I know there's a lot of overlap, but for me personally, I know the difference between I am sad and I'm in physical pain. And yeah, depression, can make my joints, I mean, not my joints, depression can make my muscles ache or whatever, but I also understand when I'm sad and it's affecting my body, and when my body's in pain and it's affecting my mood. I understand the difference from the origin of these things. So, the doctors all said that I did not understand that origin, and I was making it up, and I didn't understand what was going on, and I was, a crazy woman who was just seeking attention and using the system. But, well, eventually I did enough research on my own and testing on myself, just not testing on myself. I mean, I kept lists of my symptoms and tracked things and understood what was going on, enough to figure out what the problem actually was. And I found some things that worked for it, and that led to my diagnosis. And to be fair, the doctors were partially correct that it is excuse my cat. The doctors are partially correct that it is a mind-body connection issue. It is definitely worsened by anxiety and tension, but it is, at its root, it's a physical disorder. Just in the way that migraines and diabetes and heart disease are physical diseases, they're physical problems that are influenced by stress. And you can't go on Zoloft and cure your diabetes, even though maybe going on Zoloft will help lower your blood sugar to the point where other things can actually help it as well. But it can't be cured by mental medication. And you can't cure your gastroparesis that way either, although several doctors did suggest that to me. At any rate, so for me personally, the best solution is, at this point, is to track my food and track the effects it has on me, and try to be very, very careful and gentle with my body while I'm eating. And I absolutely loathe food tracking and restricting my diet and counting calories. I fucking hate doing all that stuff. It is the worst. So I'm very motivated to stop doing it. So I'm very motivated to focus on it right now so I can stop doing it. So I can move past that and be in a place where I am healed enough that I don't have to do it anymore, where it's automatic to me and my body can heal itself. So that's what these trackers are for. This page is another tracker, which I'm covering up so people can avoid that if they want to. This is a linoleum carving that I did. It's very sketchy. I was just trying some things out, trying different techniques. This is not good art, but I like the sketchy style of it. This is journaling about my relationship with coffee. That was under there, and I painted over the words because I was having some, yeah. This is another tracker, and this is where my Q2 goals are. That's the denotation of that. I separate my goals into types. This is writing, this is physical or obligations, writing, physical, social. Writing, obligations, social, physical. Right. So, writing, I want to read more. I want to get more rejections for my stories. This is obligations. I want to do 100% on my self-care trackers. I want to go to the dentist. I haven't written that part down yet. Social, I want to see my friends more often, go on more dates with my friends, which is very difficult to do. You know, you get really busy and you have to plan it, structure it. So I have to work on that. I want to meet up with my local writer groups more, and I really want to get better at sign language again. I used to have some deaf friends locally, and so I was fairly, not fluent, but I was definitely conversational. And that's all lapsed in the last couple of years, so I want to get better at it so I can, you know, meet up with so I can meet up with deaf people again and talk and hopefully make more friends again if they like me. And physical things, I want to learn to swim and start swimming, you know, run. This is April's monthly page. There's no art for this month because, like I said, I'm moving, so I have a page just dedicated to that, as well as the calendar and my personal to-do list. Another sketching. This week's weekly things, which hasn't been filled in yet because it hasn't happened. Another tracker that hasn't happened yet, so I haven't filled it in. And this is a little more art. This is actually from a video game that I've been playing called Alice. It's really old now, actually. It's a horror game, but the premise is that you're Alice Liddell from Alice in Wonderland. And you have been kept in a mental hospital until recently because of some trauma. And because you keep talking about things like, oh, playing cards that walk around, and roses that are painted, and rabbits with pocket watches, and a grinning cat who talks to you. And in order to heal yourself, you return to your madness. You go back to Wonderland and you fight the demons that, you know, try to attack you and control you. And it is an old game, and I played it as a kid, and I'm playing the sequel now, and it's just, oh my gosh, I just love it so much. It's got the most beautiful music, and it's got beautiful visuals, and it's very creepy, and it's nervy, and I think it's very funny because Alice herself as a character is wonderful. She's incredibly pragmatic, and she's just so funny. She'll see something horrible happen, and she'll be like, well, nuts to that. Like, that's great. Fantastic. And this is also a quote from the game. It really resonated with me. It's kind of the theme of the year, I think, that when I'm not making myself small and harmless, when I dare to take up the space that I need, it's like I'm too much. And that might be a little metaphorical. So it's like when you're on public transportation or a plane or something, a shared space with other people, the seats are only so big. And some people will deliberately take up more than their fair share. They'll spread their legs really wide, or they'll put their luggage next to them, and they'll take up more of the armrest, and they expect you to accommodate them and make yourself smaller than is comfortable for you so they can have extra space. And I don't mean people who legitimately need extra room, because, you know, bodies come in different forms. Some people are very tall and they legitimately need more legroom, or they're broad and they can't fit in the seats as they are, or they have physical disabilities or whatever. You know, that's completely fine, of course, absolutely. Like, we all have different needs, but there are people who intentionally use more space than they need, and they take it from you because they don't want you to have it. So they're being selfish jerks. And the fact of the matter is that they paid for their seat and you paid for your seat, and you have the right to use every inch of that seat for yourself, unless, like I said, they legitimately need it. And it's something that I find happens a lot, that I am expected as a woman in the world, as a minority, as a disabled person, I'm expected to scrunch up and shrink myself smaller to make someone else more comfortable. And I need to remember that that's not necessary. It is okay for me to take up physical room in the world. It is okay for me to have needs and wants and to expect those to be fulfilled. Obviously they can't always, but if someone else is uncomfortable because I am there taking up a reasonable, fair share of space in the physical world, in the mental world, on the internet, whatever, their discomfort is not my problem to solve. I don't have to worry about what they think. So, that is the takeaway from the quarter year. Be who you are, learn your freaking skills, get your ego out of the way, and just be okay with it. Take up your space in the world. We'll see how it goes.